everything that transpired, but I know a number of people who were here yesterday are also on the call this morning virtually, so welcome back. And without further ado, I would like to bring on our first speaker this morning. Our keynote speaker is Ken Grossman. And let me give you a little background on Ken. He is owner, president, and master brewer of the Sierra Nevada Brewing Company. And I can vouch that this is good beer. Ken makes some good beer in Colorado. I tried some last night, in fact. Ken founded Sierra Nevada Brewing Company in 1980 with a vision to redefine traditional ale. Over the following 3 decades, Grossman and Sierra Nevada gained a reputation for world-class beer as pioneers of the craft beer renaissance. In addition to producing first-rate ales and lagers, Sierra Nevada has made a commitment to environmental responsibility. In its state-of-the-art brewery, it utilizes a wide variety of tools to plan for a sustainable future. These efforts focus on energy creation, featuring 4 cogeneration fuel cells and the largest private solar installation in the U.S., producing the majority of the brewery's power on site. In addition to its energy program, Sierra Nevada also utilizes water treatment and reuse, CO2 recovery, heat recovery, biodiesel manufacture, and has built a brewery culture dedicated to reduce, reuse, and recycle, which helps minimize its impact on the planet. We really need to hear CEOs' viewpoints on this, and we are fortunate today to have someone who is living and breathing sustainability in his business. So, Ken, welcome.
Well, thank you. I had hoped to be down there today. Hopefully this is my first live meeting like this, so hopefully it works out well. I've been traveling quite a bit, and I apologize. I got a cold the last couple of days. I was in Denver last week and in Portland yesterday, so I'll try to do my best here and give you a good presentation. We've been doing, I guess, sustainable things for our whole 30 years. When I started out in 1980, we had to, out of necessity, do a lot of innovation and fabrication and save resources just because we didn't have the money to support buying new equipment. So we recycled and reused and innovated quite a bit. And over our last 30 years, we've really taken those practices to a very high level. And I'll talk about some of the things we've done, as well as, I guess, what we do to communicate about it. That's probably not one of our strong points. We've always had the notion we wanted to walk the talk and not necessarily just talk about it. So we probably have done less than many of other people in the industry as far as communicating about what they've done, but I think we've accomplished a lot more than probably most have in our 30 years. Try to advance slides here. I just did, okay. So communicating sustainability, I guess, the first thing is walk the talk, and that's something that we've done throughout our business, and not just in the sustainability, but in our vision and mission, and we've really tried to be a great company and not talk about how great we are. So we've taken a little different tact. I go to many businesses and see they've got big vision and mission statements that really don't necessarily ring true to the employees. So we've done what we feel is the right thing to do, and we've communicated along the way, but we haven't had the communication out there in front. We've actually been trying to accomplish things and prove that we're doing what we say we're doing. And I do believe that sustainability does start at the top, and it's something that I'm passionate about. My early years I spent as a mountaineer and backpacker, and I was out in nature quite a bit, so I've got a real connection to trying to preserve the resources we have and to leave the world in as good of a condition as when we started with our operations. I talk to many business people, and they talk about, well, what's the ROI on that kind of a project? And many of the projects we do have decent ROIs, and so it's something we certainly pay attention to and look at. But there are times when I've decided that it's something that's the right thing to do, and the ROI is not great, or in some cases it has no ROI. But we still feel that as part of a manufacturer who uses a lot of resources, that it's important for us to sort of take a leadership role and do the right thing, whether or not it really financially always makes sense. But in most cases, we do get a decent return on our investments. And I think something else that we've been careful to do is to not overstate our accomplishments and to admit that we're not perfect. We're never going to have a zero waste operation. I don't know that really any business can honestly make that claim. I know some businesses are touting some aspects of that, but I think if you look at the impact of your operations, there's always going to be some use of resources. So I think it's our obligation to do as good of a job as we can. Sustainability is a pretty broad bucket, and there's not one definition, and there's lots of people who have different ideas on what it is. I sit on the City of Chico Sustainability Task Force, and it took us many meetings just to come to consensus of what the sustainability statement for the city was going to be. So it's something that you've got to take your own approach to, and try to get people talking in the same language. But there's always going to be differences of opinion on what that means. I'm often asked, "Oh, you've gone green," or I hear companies say, "We've gone green," or "We're going green." I mean, we've got a green bottle, and that's what I consider going green. We've been green for 30 years, and our beer label is green. But as far as our company going green, we think that's more of a marketing slogan than a reality. We're doing a lot of things that are environmentally conscious. We're paying attention to our waste streams. We're paying attention to our energy consumption and water use. But I wouldn't say there is a going green. I think, focusing on all those aspects is important for any business person. But saying you're a green company because of it, I think is a little bit of an overstatement. And I acknowledge that, as a manufacturer, we use lots of water. We use lots of energy in various forms, from growing of our raw materials to making bottles and trucking and transport and refrigeration and all those other things. So as far as we're concerned, we're never going to be a 100% sustainable company. But there's lots of measures we can take, and I think there's lots of opportunities to lessen our impact on the world and our neighborhood. To start, one thing I do think is important, and again, I think the leadership's got to come from the top, is to build a team. You've got to get your employees on board with whatever efforts that you're trying to accomplish. And we have got a company now of 500 employees, and not all of them have the same sensibilities about the environment or about waste and waste diversion and some of the initiatives that we've focused on. So that's probably one of the harder aspects. You've got to start educating your own force and communicate directly with your people as to why it's important and why you're passionate about it, or why you think it's important for your company to focus on those measures. It's something we found is that you've got to make it easy. People are, they're in the habit of throwing things away. They're in the habit of taking shortcuts when it's easier. So for us, we've done a lot, I think, to try to make things like recycling and reuse and energy saving as painless as possible. And that's something that we notice. If you've just got a trash can sitting there and no recycling containers, and the recycling container is 200 feet away, people aren't always going to go out of their way, and it's not necessarily productive for them to walk a great distance to do something as simple as recycling. So you've got to make that easy for everybody to do. And reinforce the goals. So for us, we currently have 2 sustainability full-time staff, and part of their mission is to educate the workforce, to reinforce that, to post our gains and accomplishments, as well as to figure out ways how to use less resources and to divert waste streams that are maybe hard to divert. So we've put some dollars behind it, but also I say that message as well. So it's important for, I think, the leadership to communicate that is important all across the organization. And here are some examples. So this is in one of our main hallways, and we've got a bulletin board with a lot of sustainable initiatives, a lot of information. We do things like provide subsidized bus fares for people who want to take the bus. We encourage cycling to work. We have drawings where you can win a free bicycle if you do certain things. We've got a exercise, health kinds of initiatives that come out of this, but a lot focused on what we can do as a company to use less resources. So that's one of our main halls, and another one of our main halls, again, just to reinforce the message that recycling is important. So we have recycled containers, battery recycling. We'll take batteries from people's homes and recycle them here on site for them. So again, we've tried to reinforce that in many ways. Here's something we put in a couple years ago, and this is a screenshot of one of our flat panels, and we have 3 of these located around the brewery. Large flat panels that are touch screens, and they've got many, many pages, and they're used to communicate to our employees, and they're primarily used to show our key performance indicators, every department of the company, from our restaurant to our gift store to all the production departments and the plant utilities. We've got a key performance indicators page with many different metrics being measured. And this is some screenshots I printed up of, this is the amount of water per barrel we produce, and it's tracked on a monthly basis, and it's displayed. Anybody can go up and look at these screens. They're located strategically around the brewery. Another one is our wastewater generated per barrel, another metric we track. This is kilowatt hours presumed per barrel. So we've got quite a few metrics that we do track and we display and we talk about. We allow our employees to see how we're doing and to see how we're benchmarking against ourselves. There are some industry benchmarks, and we do participate in global kinds of performance databases, so we can see how we're doing compared to our peers. But we're primarily looking at how we're doing month over month and year over year, just to see where we can have opportunities to make improvements. Another one, waste recycled, and we have targets set for all these things. We're below our target for this year. We had a 99.7 target for waste diversion. We're doing great at 99.5 or 6, but we think we've got opportunities to improve that. My goal will be to get to 100% waste diversion, so we're not sending anything to landfill. And we've worked pretty hard at that, and I'll show you some initiatives later on. But again, reinforcing it to the workforce is where I think you need to start, and we do things as simple. We use a lot of wood pallets. As the wood pallets get damaged, chunks of wood come off. Our warehouse people pick them up, and rather than throw them in the garbage, they go into a kindling bin for those people who have wood stoves at home. We do have arrangements with cogen plants, so all of our wood scrap, including pallets, gets shredded and chipped and sent off to a cogen plant for generation. Even things as hard to find a reuse for, these are the burlap bales that our hops come shipped in. We've worked with beekeepers and landscapers to use that burlap, repurpose it to wrap tree roots up, and then to use for smoking. They use the burlap in their smokers, so the beekeepers give us a little bit of honey. But some of these projects do not give us any monetary return necessarily, other than keeping products out of the landfill. And I normally talk about all the initiatives we're doing. I'm only going to hit on a few of them today. We do a lot of different things, a lot of different areas. We do a lot of construction around here, and we do recycle all of our construction material. Concrete and rebar, we've torn up paving over the years, and we stockpile it. We just actually did a big campaign last week to crush all this used recovered concrete up and produce gravel, which now is being used under a new construction. So again, rather than having that hauled off site and either landfilled or dumped somewhere, and then us trucking new gravel back in, we've been able to reuse pretty much all those materials. Rebar is recycled. Basic things, all businesses, if you use much cardboard, baling is a very easy and simple process. Things like shrink wrap that comes on the outside of some of our materials coming into us. Finding uses and people to take those a little bit tougher, but we've been able to come together with some other local businesses where we can't generate enough of these waste streams to economically ship them back to a manufacturer, and been able to reuse all that. Spent grains is something that we generate a lot of, over 100,000 pounds a day of spent brewing materials. And historically, all that's been going to the dairy farming communities, and we're fortunate that around Chico we've got quite a few dairy farms. But lately, we've been partnering with the university for the last 6 or 7 years. They have a good agricultural program here and a USDA butcher shop, so we actually have our own herd of cattle that we own, and we partner with the university. Students get to learn about, we call it story beef, or a product that's sold at a premium price as a premium product. Ours is fed our spent brewing materials, spent hops, and spent yeast and spent grain, and it's a bit healthier than standard beef would be. We use no antibiotics, so we've got a great story to tell, and that communication with the university, the kids learn about how to market those kinds of higher valued products. So it's been a great cooperative program with them, and we get to sell that beef in our restaurant. So we have our own source of naturally raised beef that, again, helps close the cycle from our input materials. Initiative that we've focused on this last couple of years and really ramped it up this last month, we purchased a large composting system, the first in the U.S., built in New Zealand, called a hot rot unit. Allow us to compost on site up to 2 tons a day of all of our restaurant waste, all of our spent hops and malt that we have in surplus that we're not using as animal feed, and produce compost that then goes back onto our own fields, and we have organically raised produce for our restaurant. So again, part of our communication strategy here is that's advertised or promoted in our menus in our restaurant. We talk about the program we have, besides being what I think is a fairly unique arrangement where we are going to be producing the majority of our vegetables, we're producing the majority of our meats. It's a very small part of my business and not necessarily a part of my business that has any ROI, but it does help communicate that story that we like to talk about, how we can help close the loop. And for us, it's being a leader in this area and being able to show that it is possible to operate these kinds of operations. So this is a picture of the hot rot unit. So we just commissioned it about 10 days ago. It takes a 12 or 14-day cycle to turn spent produce or plate scrapings even. It's high temperature enough. It gets up into the 150s or 160 degree Fahrenheit range, so it can sterilize the material as it's getting composted. Odor-free. It's all under vacuum, so there's no odors emitted from it. But allows us then to return this all back on our own land. And we've got, this is a shot of our garden. We've got 2 acres now, and we just started this last year. So again, a fun project, helps allow us to tell our story. Maybe it doesn't have the best ROI if you look at what it costs us to put all this equipment in, but we think since we don't really advertise, it is a way we can get our message out about what we're doing. Something else we made a pretty big investment in a couple of years ago is we put in our own rail facility. So we've got property near the brewery where we put in a little rail yard. We bought a fairly large chunk of property, which allowed us actually now to have some farming ground. So we actually farm our own organic barley for some special beers on this property. But putting in the rail system, we were the first new installation on the Union Pacific Main Line in Northern California, I think in 25 or 30 years, they told us. But for us, this was a great ROI. This was a 4-year project, 4-year payback project. We bring in a lot of malt from Canada and faraway places, and doing it all by truck was very energy intensive. So this was a way that we could tell a great story, take a lot of trucks off the road. We've taken 20 trucks a week off the road, and have a great return on our investment. So that's been one of those good stories. We've taken the city council out on our rail, so it's something that we think has great benefits over just over the energy and dollar savings. And this is the barley that we grow on that field. So we ended up with about 35 acres that we're not using, where we are farming, again, in cooperation with the university. We also have our own hop field here at the brewery. We've got 9 acres of hops. Again, not necessarily driven by any ROI. Our hops are probably the most expensive hops we use, but allows us to show our consumers, and we get thousands and thousands of visitors a year. So part of our communication to our customers happens here on site. So it allows us to tell the story about how hops were a valuable commodity or valuable product that was being grown in Northern California, and we're growing them again here. and we're doing it organically. So, again, it helps with our mission and our story. I've got a little video here. Hopefully it'll play. If it doesn't, I'm going to skip through. It looks like it's not going to play. So I had a video of making the special estate beer. We're the only one, we think, in the world that's producing a all estate organic beer where we've grown all the ingredients here on site. So we'll have to skip that video. Let's see if I can get. Other areas we focused on is energy creation and minimizing use, and here's our packaging lines, which we put a lot of skylights in with sensors that sense the ambient light in the room and control the amount of lighting that's provided. We've put in heat recovery systems as a vapor condenser on top of our beer kettles, something very common in Germany where energy costs are much, much higher. We were one of the first to put this in the U.S., where we can capture the waste heat that would normally be going up the stack. Wastewater, breweries generate a lot of wastewater, so we have a wastewater treatment facility, and we process all of our own wastewater. But as a benefit to that, we do it with an anaerobic process that produces methane. So we've been able to harvest that methane as one of our energy sources. We're producing a significant amount of biogas, which then gets fed back into our boilers and fuel cells, and that was mentioned earlier. I'll talk a little bit about some of the recognition we've received, and most of our initiatives are not driven by trying to get this recognition, but we've received the Governor's Environmental Leadership Award, and we've been a RAP waste reduction recipient for many, many years. But we did, get a higher recognition, and the Governor's office gave us significant accolades for some of the work we've done. Governor Schwarzenegger has been here to the brewery. He's a proponent of fuel cells and alternative energy. Again, we received a significant amount of publicity when he came up here and did a kickoff and drank some beer with me during that event. Here's what our fuel cells look like. Again, our communication strategy has a lot to do with the experience here in Chico. So these are right out front, and part of our tour is to show how we're able to embrace technology. We put in, at the time, I think the largest fuel cell installation, a megawatt of fuel cell power, that's being fed with biogas, primarily with natural gas now, but can be fed with biogas. Our biogas is being used in our boilers currently. But we generate about 80% of our own electricity here on site with a combination of solar and the fuel cells. This is a overhead shot of what the plant looks like now. When I started 30 years ago, I had one employee, and we were in a little metal building of about 3,000 square feet. Today, we have about 40 acres. The brewery's on about 15 of those acres. And you can see a lot of solar power. We actually have over 10,000 solar panels installed on our facility currently. And we have a parking lot area for our patrons that's got a half a megawatt tracking solar array. Altogether, we've got close to 2 megawatts of solar power production. So a very significant investment. Most of it has a decent ROI in the 4 to 6 year range. Some of it out as far as 13 years, though, just because we've exhausted all of the financial incentives, and there were some projects we still wanted to do. So we are committing to putting in more solar, even though the ROI at this point is not quite as good as we would like to see, but it is still something that we feel is important for our organization. Some of our rooftop panels, again, this is part of our tour, so if you come to visit the brewery, you would see a lot of the initiatives that we've done. Communicating to people outside of the brewery, we do have a website that talks about a lot of the stuff we do. I didn't get a screenshot, but we do have real-time monitoring of our energy production versus our energy consumption. So you can go and see what we're actually producing any time of the day and what we're using. So we're just in the process of revamping our website, and we will put in more of those kinds of real-time interfaces so that, again, there's a connection with the consumer. We do produce a little bit of biodiesel. Our restaurant waste grease all goes into biodiesel production. Not a significant amount of what we use, but it is something that we at least can have our local trucks. And we do have one of the early generation of electric diesel delivery trucks, so we were one of the pilot units for that. Carbon dioxide emissions, fermenting beer produces CO2 and alcohol as part of the natural biological process. I didn't think that it was a great idea to release all these pounds of carbon dioxide from fermentation, so we put in a very large European-made gas compressor that we actually capture the carbon dioxide that comes out of our fermenters, compress it, and use it in our own operations. So we've got our own natural source of CO2. Not a great ROI, but again, an okay ROI, and it did allow us to eliminate one source of emissions of carbon dioxide. We did join the PG&E Climate Smart program. We were, I think, one of the first significant businesses to join. Theoretically, I guess we could claim that we're carbon neutral because we do pay a significant amount of money over our standard PG&E rates in order to have that money invested back into projects that sequester CO2 in California. We do not make that claim. Other businesses I know use those kinds of things pretty liberally and say they're carbon neutral because they buy offsets or credits. We don't really like, I guess, that approach to being green, I guess, in essence. That we think it's the right thing to do again, but we haven't made a big point of marketing that relationship with PG&E. And we do get some press releases. Here was one when we joined the Climate Registry. We were the first brewery to join the California Climate Action Registry, which is now morphed into a national registry. So we're tracking all of our CO2 emissions. They're published. There is transparency. The protocols are accepted. So there has been press generated around that. Again, we haven't necessarily done it ourselves, but we have gotten some good press from it. This is my 3-year-old. I'm going to end here shortly. My hope is that as her first fish, my hope is that in 30 more years that she'll be able to live in a world where we've done what we can to minimize the impacts on the environment and to preserve as much of the natural resources as we can. Again, we acknowledge the fact that we're a user of those resources, and I think any business really needs to look at what happens the next generation or two with how those resources are preserved. So I want to thank all of you today. I wish I could be there with you. I will end at this point, and here's to hopefully another 30 years. So thank you very much.
Ken?
Yes.
Let's see if there's any questions before we let you go. Thank you very much for that.
Happy to take them.
Okay. Anybody in this room or online, you can use the *# key to ask a question. Anybody here? Yes, Bruce?
I came in a little late.
Want to come forward so he can hear you?
I walked in a couple minutes late. I don't know if you addressed this or not. I was interested in just the organization of your program from the standpoint of resourcing and governance. How many people do you have driving all of these programs, and how involved are you on a day-to-day basis?
I have 2 full-time sustainability coordinators or sustainability folks. And their jobs really start at education. So when we do new employee orientation, part of it is our sustainability efforts. They do spend a bit of their time working on trying to improve recycling, reuse of raw materials. So will meet with various department heads and talk about what we can do to minimize waste streams generated in packaging materials from certain suppliers. They do some outside speaking. So Cherie, my head sustainability person, she does talk at conferences and seminars and goes to conferences and seminars to learn about other initiatives. But it really does start with me. It's something that I feel strongly about. And I spend a fair amount of my time, so I don't know whether it's 20%, but, it's something I'm actively involved in. And I'm the one quite often out there, trying to lead the charge and look at ways to, improve on what we're doing. So a fair amount of involvement from my end and 2 full-time people.
I could ask you, Ken, do you, since the employees are more interested, more involved in sustainable activities today, or what kind of trends are you seeing?
Well, actually, interestingly enough, we just did a survey of all of our staff. So we did a sustainability sort of a questionnaire that we had probably 250, 300 responses out of our 500. So there was enough interest to respond, and the results were actually surprisingly positive that the majority of our employees certainly appreciate the initiatives we've taken and are very aware of sustainability issues and want to make improvements. So, I don't know whether that three-fifths kind of ratio of who responded is reflective. Maybe there's 80% of our people or 90% of our people who feel strongly that it's the right thing to do. So I would say much more aware today than they were 5 years ago or 3 years ago, and in part because of that pretty constant education and having it out front there and leading by example and again trying to make it easy to comply with. So I think it's been pretty positive.
Okay. I don't think I'm going to kill my camera. I was bring it on, but sorry about that.
A little bit of an echo there.
Yeah, I thought I could bring up my camera, but have to work on the audio first. What advice do you have, Ken, for companies that are really trying to integrate social responsibility into the DNA of their organization? It's one thing to talk about it, but how do you get people to really live and breathe it? How have you done that at Sierra Nevada?
It's a challenge. It's not easy. You just don't turn a switch and have everybody jump on board. So again, I think there's a lot of leading the process. We've done it in a lot of areas of our organization. So we've looked at what employees would like to have it work. So we've got a daycare facility now, which we opened up. We've got a free on-site health clinic that's staffed by physicians' assistants 5 days a week for convenience to the employee. We do nutritional counseling. We bring in speakers. We have free lunches with nutritional counselors. We have a pretty active exercise program. We pay for majority of gym memberships. And we do a lot of different things. And I think that the employees hopefully get the idea that we truly care. They see we're spending money on them. We're trying to do the right thing as far as environmental practices. So it takes a little while, though. I think it's you got to bring them along and educate them and get the buy-in. It doesn't happen overnight.